Commander Olivia Wright walked through the metal doors of the science lab. She found Dr. Alan Foster staring at floating equations in the air. His eyes hadn't moved from the blue numbers and symbols for hours. "Still at it?" she asked, setting down a cup of coffee beside him. Alan nodded without looking up. "The math works, Olivia. It all works." For 3 years, Alan had worked on his theory about 7th-dimensional space. His idea was simple, but shocking. Regular ships needed to travel through space, but a 7th-dimensional ship could fold space itself, stepping from one point to another almost instantly. The problem? Nobody believed him. "The council meeting went exactly as we expected," Olivia said, her voice tight with frustration. "They smiled politely and called your work an interesting thought experiment from our Earth colleagues." Alan finally looked, away from his equations. "They laughed again?" "Not openly. They're too polite for that. But yes, essentially." Alan stood up and stretched his back. The lab around them was cluttered with prototype parts and complex machines. On the main screen, a small ship design rotated slowly. The Paradigm, Earth's first attempt at a 7th-dimensional vessel. 50 years, he muttered. 50 years since humans joined the Galactic Alliance, and they still treat us like children playing with toys. Olivia understood his frustration. Earth had been late to develop faster-than-light travel. By the time humans reached nearby stars, 17 other civilizations had already formed a complex network of trade and knowledge. Humans were the newcomers, always struggling to catch up. "Chief Engineer Diane Miller called while you were lost in your equations," Olivia said. "The Paradigm's core installation is complete." Alan's eyes widened. "Already? That's 2 days ahead of schedule. Diane doesn't like being told something's impossible. Reminds me of someone else I know." A rare smile crossed Alan's face. "Is the test still set for tomorrow?" "Yes, and we'll have an audience." Olivia brought up a list on her tablet. "Representatives from 12 major galactic powers have accepted invitations to witness our charming but fundamentally misguided experiment." "The Arcturians are coming?" Alan looked surprised, along with the Rigelians and even a scientific observer from the Pleiadians. "They're all very polite about it, but they're coming to watch us fail." Alan walked to the window that overlooked the shipyard. In the distance, under bright lights, sat the Paradigm. It was small compared to most interstellar vessels, just 70 meters long with a sleek, simple design. Nothing about its appearance suggested it might change the galaxy forever. "They think we don't understand the Talonway limit," Alan said, quietly. "They've accepted it as unchangeable law, that nothing can cross vast distances without passing through the space between. And you're saying we can simply skip the space between?" "Not skip. Fold." Alan made a gesture with his hands, as if bringing 2 points on a paper together. In higher dimensions, points that seem distant in our reality can be adjacent. Olivia looked at the ship again. "And tomorrow we prove it. Or we fail spectacularly in front of the galaxy's greatest minds," Alan said with a nervous laugh, as though they stood looking at the Paradigm. Dr. Lisa Hernandez entered the lab carrying a small device. "Final calibrations on the dimensional sensor are complete," she announced. "If anything unusual happens during the test, we'll detect it." Alan nodded. "Good. Though if my calculations are correct, nothing unusual will happen. The ship will simply disappear here and reappear at Neptune. Physics at its most elegant. And if you're right," Olivia said, "the galaxy will never laugh at Earth again." Admiral John Carter stood at the observation window, watching the gathered aliens with careful eyes. Representatives from 17 advanced civilizations filled the room. Most wore expressions that mixed politeness with hidden amusement. They had come to see Earth fail. The Admiral straightened his uniform and checked the time. In 20 minutes, the Paradigm would attempt its first dimensional fold. If it worked, the ship would travel from Jupiter to Neptune in less than a second. A journey that took even the fastest alien ship several hours. "Quite the audience you've gathered," said the Arcturian ambassador, gliding toward him. The tall, blue-skinned alien had a pleasant voice, but his eyes showed doubt. Your scientists are certainly ambitious. We prefer the term innovative, John replied evenly. The Arcturian made a soft humming sound. Innovation requires understanding fundamentals first. The Talonway limit has been proven across thousands of years by dozens of civilizations. Perhaps those civilizations stopped asking the right questions. The Rigelian representative joined their conversation. Her crystalline body structure caught the light as she moved. We admire human determination, she said. But dimensional physics isn't something one solves through determination alone. John noticed they spoke to him as adults might speak to a child working on an impossible puzzle, with kindness but without taking the effort seriously. On the main screen, the paradigm floated against Jupiter's massive backdrop. The small ship looked ordinary, with nothing to suggest it might change galactic travel forever. Lisa Hernandez's voice came through the speakers. All systems are ready. Dimensional fold will initiate in 3 minutes. The room grew quieter as the aliens moved, closer to the viewing windows. Despite their skepticism, none wanted to miss the experiment. What exactly does your Dr. Foster believe will happen? Asked the Pleiadian observer, a being wrapped in shimmering robes that concealed most of its form. He believes the ship will create a fold in higher dimensional space, bringing 2 distant points temporarily together, John explained. Impossible, said the Rigelian immediately. Mass cannot transfer between dimensional states without energy dissipation. John didn't argue. In minutes, they would see the truth. Initiating power sequence, Lisa's voice announced. Dimensional drive activating. On the screen, the paradigm began to glow with a soft blue light. Instruments around the viewing room displayed energy readings that made several alien scientists exchange worried glances. Those power levels are approaching dangerous thresholds, warned the Arcturian ambassador. You should abort before dimensional fold activating in 3, 2, 1. The paradigm disappeared in a flash of iridescent light that seemed to bend inward on itself, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Silence fell over the room. Some of the aliens looked concerned, others satisfied, as if their predictions of failure had been confirmed by the ship's apparent destruction. John's communication device chimed. He answered calmly, aware that every alien ear was straining to hear. Admiral Carter, came the voice of the Neptune monitoring station. The paradigm has arrived at coordinates Alpha 7, transit time, 0.8 seconds, all systems operational. John deliberately kept his face neutral as he turned to address the now frozen audience. It seems the demonstration was successful. The paradigm has reached Neptune orbit in less than 1 second. The Arcturian ambassador's mouth opened and closed without sound. The Rigelian's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. That's not possible, whispered a Centauri scientist. The distance, the energy requirements. And yet, it happened, John replied, allowing himself a small smile. Dr. Foster and his team would be happy to share their preliminary findings with your scientific communities. The room erupted into urgent conversations as the aliens tried to process what they had just witnessed. Earth, the newcomer to galactic society, had just shattered one of physics' most fundamental limitations. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Daniel Garcia sat in the Galactic Council chamber, feeling very different than he had just 3 weeks ago. Before, he had been easy to ignore. Earth's representative was usually given the smallest chair at the back of the room. Today, he sat near the center, and everyone was watching him. The physics simply cannot work, insisted Professor Zalnar of the Centauri Science Academy. The tall, gray-skinned alien paced the floor, waving his long fingers in frustration. Your dimensionally shifted mass should have collapsed into singularity the moment you activated the drive. Yet here we are, Daniel replied calmly, sliding forward data from the successful test. Perhaps your understanding of dimensional physics requires revision. The chamber, filled with representatives from 28 spacefaring civilizations, buzzed with uneasy conversation. News of Earth's dimensional folding technology had spread rapidly through galactic networks. What should have been impossible according to established science had been demonstrated not once, but 7 times in the past week. We request full access to your dimensional drive schematics, demanded the Rigelian ambassador. Her crystalline form glittered under the chamber lights. For safety purposes, of course. Daniel smiled politely. Earth is preparing a series of scientific papers explaining the basic principles, but the full technology remains classified for now. This caused more murmuring around the chamber. Earth had never been in a position to deny information to the more advanced civilizations before. Back on Earth, the team behind the breakthrough was having its own discussions. They had gathered in the main conference room at the Interstellar Development Agency headquarters. 3 major galactic powers have offered trade agreements that would have been unthinkable a month ago, said Commander Olivia Wright, reviewing a data pad. And the Arcturians have suddenly remembered they've been meaning to invite Earth to join their defense alliance. Dr. Alan Foster barely heard her. He was still reviewing data from the latest test flight. Something's odd about these energy readings during the dimensional transition, he muttered. Dr. Michelle Evans, the project's safety director, nodded in agreement. We've proven the concept works, but we still don't fully understand why. The drive is accessing dimensional spaces we can barely measure, let alone comprehend, which is exactly why half the galaxy is now terrified of us, said Diane Miller, looking up from her calculations. We're like children who found a powerful weapon and made it work without understanding the risks. It's not a weapon, Alan objected. Anything that changes the balance of power this dramatically might as well be, Olivia pointed out. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. In just 3 weeks, Earth had gone from being politely dismissed to being viewed as either a valuable ally or a potential threat. The paradigm is scheduled for its 8th test tomorrow, Michelle said. We're planning a longer jump, all the way to the Kuiper Belt and back. Alan nodded grimly. That's exactly why we need to proceed carefully with the next phase. Each fold puts more strain on the dimensional barriers. We need to better understand what happens when we punch through. The Pleiadian Scientific Council sent a message this morning, Olivia added. They're asking if we've detected any dimensional echoes during our tests. Echoes? Diane looked confused. What does that mean? They wouldn't explain further. Just said it was important we monitor for any unusual patterns or responses when activating the drive. Alan made a note to adjust the sensors for the next test. The more they learned about the 7th-dimensional technology, the more he realized how little they truly understood. We've opened a door, he said quietly, but we don't know what's on the other side, or who might be looking back at us through it. The others exchanged uneasy glances. Their breakthrough had changed humanity's place in the galaxy overnight. But change always brought risk, and they were venturing into dimensions no one had explored. Before, Lieutenant Steve Cooper had never seen anything like it. The dimensional sensors that lined the paradigm's bridge were showing patterns he couldn't explain. The screens displayed waves and ripples in what should have been empty higher dimensional space. Captain Johnson, he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. There's something. I don't know how to describe it. It's like ripples in the dimensional barrier. Captain Patricia Johnson moved quickly to his station. The 5th test flight of the paradigm had been routine until now. They were preparing to make the dimensional fold from Earth orbit to Saturn, a distance that would take conventional ships days to travel. How long until fold initiation? She asked sharply. 17 seconds. Replied the navigation officer. Patricia studied the readings. The ripple patterns were growing stronger, spreading across the dimensional field like waves on a pond. Abort the jump, she ordered. Something's not right. Attempting to abort, Steve said, his fingers flying over the controls. The system isn't responding. The fold sequence is locked. Patricia grabbed the communication link. Control, this is Paradigm. We're experiencing anomalies in the dimensional field and cannot abort. Repeat, we cannot abort the fold. On Earth, in the control center, Dr. Alan Foster watched the incoming data with growing concern. What's happening? Demanded Olivia Wright, who had just entered the room. I don't know, Alan admitted. The dimensional space around the paradigm is active. It's showing energy patterns we've never seen before. The main screen showed the EA paradigm surrounded by swirling blue light that seemed to bend in impossible ways. Paradigm will enter fold space in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, announced the automated system. The ship disappeared from normal space, but the energy readings spiked dramatically. For the 30 seconds, the paradigm was in dimensional transit. Every instrument in the control room displayed values that made no scientific sense. Then suddenly the readings normalized. The paradigm reappeared near Saturn, exactly where it was supposed to be. Paradigm to control. Patricia's voice came through, sounding relieved. We've completed the fold. All systems appear normal. What happened during transit? Alan asked. Immediately. There was a pause before Patricia replied. We're not sure. The ship's systems functioned normally, but our quantum computer is behaving strangely. Strangely how? It's filled with data we didn't collect. Symbols, equations, patterns. Nothing we programmed. The control room fell silent. Chief Engineer Diane Miller was the first to speak. It's like, we brought something back with us, she whispered, scrolling through the data being transmitted from the paradigm. Or something accessed our systems while we were folded. Alan studied the patterns appearing on his screen with growing excitement. These weren't random glitches or computer errors. They had structure, complexity, and most importantly, meaning. These aren't random, he said, his voice filled with wonder. This is a language, mathematical constructs that demonstrate an understanding of dimensional physics far beyond our own. Are you saying something communicated with the ship? Olivia asked, her expression serious. Or through it, Alan replied. The 7th dimension isn't just empty space we're passing through. There's something there, something that noticed us. Back on the paradigm, Steve Cooper was extracting the strange data from the ship's computer. The symbols and equations scrolled across his screen in elegant alien patterns. Some seemed to shift and change even as he watched them. Whatever this is, he told Captain Johnson, it's not random. And it's still changing, like it's trying different ways to communicate. Patricia stared at the screen, a chill running down her spine. Humanity had developed the technology to fold through higher dimensions, thinking they were simply creating a shortcut through empty space. But the space wasn't empty at all. And now, something had noticed them passing through. Kevin Martinez had not slept in 3 days. Ever since the paradigm had returned with its mysterious data, he had been working to understand the patterns. As a linguistics specialist with a background in theoretical mathematics, he was uniquely qualified for the task. It's not just equations, he explained to the team gathered in the conference room. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his voice was filled with excitement. It's communication. There are entities that exist naturally in the higher dimensions. We're passing through. The room fell silent. Dr. Alan Foster, Commander Olivia Wright, Captain Patricia Johnson, and the other key members of the project stared at the screens where Kevin had displayed his analysis. You're saying there are beings living in the 7th dimension? Olivia asked carefully. Kevin nodded. Not beings like us, not with physical bodies. But yes, something with intelligence, awareness, and curiosity about us. Alan studied the patterns that Kevin had partially decoded. They reached out to our ship when we entered their space? Dimension, what do we even call it? They call it the fold, Kevin said. At least that's my best translation. And they call themselves the architects. Over the next few weeks, Earth conducted more test flights with the paradigm. Each time, more information was exchanged. The ship's quantum computer was now specifically programmed to communicate with the dimensional entities. What they learned changed everything they thought they knew about reality. The higher dimensions aren't empty corridors but complex ecosystems of energy and consciousness, Alan explained during a briefing with Earth's scientific leaders. The architects exist as patterns of energy across multiple dimensions. They've been aware of our universe for, well, possibly forever. And they've never contacted anyone before? Asked the director of the Interstellar Development Agency. According to them, no species has ever developed technology that directly accessed their dimensional space, Alan replied. We're the first, to create a method that didn't just pass through hyperspace but actually folded through their realm. While Earth was busy learning from the architects, the galactic community watched with increasing alarm. Ambassador Laura Wilson found herself fielding worried inquiries from species who had once dismissed humans as primitives. She sat across from the Pleiadian representative in the diplomatic chambers on the Galactic Council station. His luminous eyes regarded her with new respect and obvious concern. "We are concerned about the entities you've encountered," he stated formally. "There are ancient warnings about disturbing the higher dimensions." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Warnings you never shared with us." "They were considered legends, not science," the Pleiadian admitted. "Stories passed down from the earliest days of our spacefaring civilization. They spoke of beings beyond normal space who could reshape reality itself." "Warnings you never shared with us," Laura repeated more firmly. "Perhaps if you had treated Earth as an equal partner, rather than a curiosity, we could have approached this discovery collaboratively." The Pleiadian lowered his gaze. "You are right to be angry, but now we must focus on the future. These architects, as you call them, what do they want?" It was a question Earth's scientists were still trying to answer. With each communication, they learned more. But understanding beings that existed across 7 dimensions was challenging. "They seem curious about us," Kevin explained during one meeting. "They find our linear existence fascinating, beings limited to experiencing one moment at a time in one place at a time. Are they dangerous?" Patricia asked the question everyone was thinking. Kevin looked troubled. "I don't think so. But they exist on a scale we can barely comprehend. They can perceive the whole of our universe in ways we never could. And now that we've opened this door," he didn't need to finish the thought. Earth had made contact with something ancient and powerful. The galaxy that had once laughed at humanity now watched with a mixture of fear and anticipation to see what would happen next. The horizon gleamed under the lights of Earth's orbital shipyard. At 3 times the size of the Paradigm, it was specifically designed for extended travel through the 7th dimension. Its sleek hull contained technology that would have been considered impossible just 1 year ago. Captain Gregory Nelson walked slowly around the bridge, inspecting each station with careful attention. After 6 months of rigorous testing and training, the Horizon was ready for its first official mission, to formally establish relations with the architects. "Final systems check complete," announced his first officer, Linda Reeves. "All stations report ready for dimensional fold." Gregory nodded. He had been selected to command the Horizon because of his unique background, a combination of scientific understanding and diplomatic skills gained during 15 years of service. Still, nothing in his training had prepared him for communicating with beings that existed across multiple dimensions of reality. "Begin pre-fold sequence," he ordered, "and make sure the dimensional translator is functioning at full capacity." The translator was Earth's newest breakthrough, a quantum computer system designed to convert the architect's multidimensional language into something humans could understand. It was built with technology that the architects themselves had helped develop. As the crew prepared for departure, representatives from various galactic powers watched from a safe distance. Their ships had arrived in Earth's system over the past week, officially to observe the historic launch. In reality, they were scrambling to catch up with Earth's sudden technological leap. "The Rigelian science vessel is scanning us again," Linda reported quietly. Gregory smiled. "Let them scan. They won't understand what they're seeing." Earth's head start in 7th-dimensional technology had proved insurmountable. The very physics that alien civilizations had dismissed as impossible was now revolutionizing interstellar travel, communication, and energy production. "Fold sequence initiating in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Gregory touched the small communication device in his ear, a direct link to Dr. Alan Foster, who was monitoring from Earth Control. "We're ready, Alan," he said. "Any last advice?" Alan's voice came through clearly. "Remember that time works differently for them. What seems like a conversation to us might be just a flash to them, or vice versa. The translator should compensate, but be patient." "Understood." The countdown reached 0, and the horizon slipped into the 7th dimension. Unlike earlier ships, the horizon was designed to remain in this higher dimensional state, allowing direct interaction with the architects. The familiar ripple patterns appeared on the main screen, but now the crew understood what they were seeing, the equivalent of footprints or wakes left by the architects as they moved through their native dimension. "Contact established," reported the communications officer. "Translator is processing. Symbols and mathematical equations flowed across the screens. The translator converted them into words and concepts humans could understand. Welcome, linear ones. You have returned with a vessel made to exist partially in our realm. This pleases us." Gregory stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, we greet the architects. We come seeking knowledge and friendship." The response came faster than in previous contacts. "Your species fascinates us. You were not expected to discover the fold paths for many thousands of your years. The others who travel between stars use only the shallowest layers of reality. The architects have shown us that what we call the 7th dimension is merely one layer of a much more complex reality," Gregory explained later during a press conference after the Horizon's successful return. "They've existed alongside our universe for billions of years, watching civilizations rise and fall." What he didn't share publicly was what the architects had revealed during their final exchange. They hadn't merely been watching. They had been waiting for a species curious enough and perhaps reckless enough to bridge the dimensional gap. The question that kept Gregory awake at night was simple. Why had they been waiting? What purpose did the architects have for humanity now that contact had been established? The answer, he suspected, would change everything once again. The sky above Proxima Centauri turned a strange purple color. Stars seemed to bend and twist as something tore through the fabric of space itself. It wasn't a natural event. It was a wound in reality. Captain Samantha Taylor stood on the bridge of the Defender, Earth's first 7th-dimensional patrol vessel. Behind her, representatives from 12 formerly skeptical galactic powers watched in silent awe. These aliens had once laughed at Earth's scientific theories. Now they depended on humans to save them. "Dimensional rift is expanding," reported First Officer Eric Jackson, his eyes fixed on the displays. "Current size is 8,000 kilometers and growing." Samantha nodded calmly. "Begin approach sequence. Prepare 7th-dimensional shields." 3 months ago, during the Horizon's third expedition into the higher dimensions, the architects had revealed their true purpose. They weren't merely inhabitants of higher dimensions, they were its guardians, protecting the delicate fabric of reality from threats that existed beyond conventional understanding, and they had chosen humanity as their allies. "Your species puzzles us," the translated communication had read. "You were not the most advanced nor the most powerful, but you were the only ones who looked at the dimensional barriers and asked what if, instead of accepting limitations." The architects had explained that the universe was more fragile than anyone realized. Tiers sometimes formed between dimensions, rifts that could grow and eventually destroy entire star systems if left unchecked. For millions of years, the architects had repaired these rifts alone. Now, they needed help. The barriers between dimensions were weakening faster than before, and the architects couldn't maintain them without assistance. "Approaching optimal position," Eric announced. 200,000 kilometers from the rift center. "All personnel prepare for dimensional shift," Samantha ordered. The 12 alien observers tensed visibly. None of them had experienced 7th-dimensional transit before. The Defender was unlike any ship ever built. Designed with direct input from the architects, it could not only travel through the higher dimensions but could manipulate them, sealing tiers in reality that threatened to expand. "Out of control. Initiating dimensional fold," said the navigator. The ship slipped sideways into reality, entering a state where it existed partially in normal space and partially in the 7th dimension. Through the viewports, the crew could see both the physical universe and the swirling patterns of higher dimensional energy that the architects called home. The rift appeared as a jagged tear with darkness beyond, not the darkness of space, but the emptiness of whatever lay between dimensions. "Architect contact established," reported the communications officer. They're ready to begin the sealing process. Samantha moved to the center of the bridge. Deploy dimensional anchors. Begin energy transfer sequence. The Defender extended, specialized field projectors that the architects could use as focal points. Together, ship and higher dimensional beings began to close the tear in reality. Energy flowed through the Defender in patterns that defied conventional physics. The alien observers watched with expressions of wonder and fear as the impossible happened before their eyes. The rift is responding, Eric reported. Dimensional integrity restoring at 18%, 32%. It took nearly an hour, but gradually the tear sealed itself. The strange purple distortion faded and stars returned to their proper positions. Sealing complete, Eric finally announced. The rift is closed. A wave of relief washed through the bridge. The communications panel lit up with messages from the Proxima Centauri colony, thanking them for averting disaster. Dimensional fold. Initiating, announced Eric. 7th-Dimensional shields at maximum. As the Defender prepared to return to normal space, Samantha allowed herself a small smile. 1 year ago, Earth had been considered a backwater planet with little to offer the galactic community. Now, humanity stood as guardians of reality itself, working alongside beings that existed beyond conventional understanding. The galaxy that had once laughed at Earth's primitive scientific theories now looked to humanity with newfound respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. For in reaching beyond conventional limitations, humans had not only revolutionized space travel, but had discovered their place in a much larger cosmic order. As the Defender vanished into the iridescent light of dimensional transit, Samantha thought about how far they had come. The universe, it seemed, had only just begun to reveal its secrets. I see you'd like me to write an 8th part for the story, though the outline I initially created only had 7 parts. I'm happy to extend the story with a new chapter. Here's part 8. Admiral Ryan Bennett stood before the United Galactic Council, a position that would have been unthinkable just 2 years ago. The Grand Chamber, with its soaring crystal ceiling showing the stars beyond, held representatives from 37 spacefaring civilizations. Earth now held one of the 5 leadership seats. The Dimensional Stability Network is now 60% complete, Ryan reported. Earth and the architects have established monitoring stations in 17 key sectors. Rift activity has decreased by 43% in monitored regions. The Arcturian High Minister leaned forward. And what of the anomalies detected in the Orion Spur? My scientists report unusual dimensional fluctuations. Ryan nodded gravely. Those aren't rifts. They're what the architects call echoes, reflections, from another universe trying to connect with ours. A murmur ran through the chamber. Even after 2 years of working with 7th-dimensional technology, many civilizations still struggled to understand the true nature of reality that Earth and the architects were exploring. Back on the Defender, now docked at Earth's Dimensional Research Station, Samantha Taylor was reviewing data from their last mission. The ship had sealed 3 rifts in the past month alone, more than they had seen in the previous 6 months combined. The pattern is clear, she told Eric as he joined her. The rifts aren't random. They're appearing in specific configurations across the galaxy. Eric studied the star map where the rift locations were marked. Almost like they're forming some kind of shape. Or a message, Samantha said quietly. The door slid open and Dr. Alan Foster entered. Despite being nearly 70 now, he still led Earth's dimensional research. The discovery of the 7th dimension had only fueled his curiosity and drive. Architects have confirmed your suspicions, he said without preamble. The rifts are being created deliberately. Samantha felt a chill run through her. By what? I thought the architects were the highest dimensional beings we knew of. Alan shook his head. Apparently not. They've detected signs of something existing in what they call the 11th dimension, a level of reality so far beyond our understanding that the architects themselves struggle to perceive it. Are they hostile? Eric asked, the military officer, in him immediately assessing the threat. The architects don't think in terms of hostile or friendly, Alan reminded him. But they are concerned. Whatever is causing these rifts seems to be trying to create a gateway between our dimensional plane and theirs. Samantha turned back to the star map. So we're not just fixing natural tears in reality. We're fighting an invasion from beyond dimensions. That's one interpretation, Alan agreed. The architects have shared designs for a new type of vessel, one that can not only travel through the seventh dimension, but can potentially reach even higher planes. The implications were staggering. 2 years ago, humanity had shocked the galaxy by mastering seventh-dimensional travel. Now they face something from even higher dimensions, beings or forces that even the architects feared. The new ship will be called the Transcendent, Alan continued. Construction begins next month. The architects have requested that you command it, Samantha. She looked up in surprise. Me? Why not someone with more scientific background? Because the architects trust you. And because whatever we're facing, it's not just a scientific problem. It may require making difficult decisions that affect the entire galaxy. As they spoke, in the vastness of space near the galactic core, another rift began to form. This one was different, larger and more stable than any before it. Through this tear in reality, something was watching the small blue planet that had so suddenly risen to prominence. Humanity had proven itself by mastering the seventh dimension. Now they would face the ultimate test, a confrontation with beings from dimensions so high that reality itself bent to their will. The galaxy that had once laughed at Earth now held its breath, waiting to see if humans could once again do the impossible.